You are now listening to Nerd Hour. Amateur Hour. Please, allow me to show you something. Let's get to work.
Hello,
All right.
everyone, and welcome back to Film Nerds Hour.
As you can see, we're as on top of things as usual.
And we're, sorry about that. We're a little late.
Yeah, we're Noah Sweeto and Nathaniel Shoemaker. We have stuff going on in our lives. Sorry about that, but rest assured, we will get this month out to you at a semi-regular basis, hopefully.
This month should be pretty good for you guys. As always, YouTube is always a little bit hit or miss, but we are working harder on that, so
Yes.
hopefully that'll be good for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But today, as you can see, we're doing another indie film to start out the month. We're kind of doing...
Yes, what is this month's theme, please?
Kind of a mind bender, because I want to get through that first minute, because we all know how YouTube is.
Yeah.
Hi, YouTube. How you doing?
Mind blank. Just assume insert the word yourself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have a little buzzer like Deadpool from Once Upon a Deadpool,
Yeah.
which the only good thing about that movie was it actually took ticket prices and $1 went to charity for every ticket sold.
Hey, I thought the good thing wasn't him with Fred Savage improving for 5 minutes.
Oh, it was. It just,
Yeah.
the cut was so shit that it looked terrible.
It's just because it cut out a bunch of stuff.
I know, and it showed. It was literally like the Slenderman movie, but with Ryan Reynolds and Fred Savage, and that's the only thing that saved it.
Sure. I
So
mean,
it wasn't
didn't they even
irreversibly
acknowledge that it sucked in the movie?
Yeah, that's why Ryan Reynolds never wanted to do PG-13. That's why he said he would never do it.
And
But he did it for charity, and that's the only reason I liked it, because he told Fox, if you're going to do this,
for charity.
$1 each ticket, charity, no negotiation. It was like,
Done.
good. I'm glad they realized that. But this is called a Mindfuck Month.
There we go. We're past the first minute.
Because, we're almost to 2 minutes, and I'm not,
Shit ass titties.
Yeah, say whatever the fuck I want now.
Do you like the energy I have? I've been here for hours.
Yeah. But then now we get to cut loose.
I've been here so long, it's felt like it's been endless. Huh?
Alright.
Huh?
Alright, I can give you that.
Yeah. You didn't give it to me, I took it. Okay. So, where can people watch it if they would like to?
I am pulling that up as we speak right now.
Just pull it up, don't pull it out.
Because these guys recently are the same directors who came out with Synchronic, which is some movie starring Anthony Mackie. So you guys can check that on Netflix.
Anthony Mackie and someone else I like, but I'll look that up. Is it Jamie Dorian?
But
Maybe.
the two directors are Justin Benson and Aaron Moorehead. Those are the guys who did this. And apparently this movie has some references to their other movie that they did called Spring, which came out in 2014, which focused on, I believe, some sort of demon girl of some sort. I don't know if it's a succubus or what. It's a monster girl. That's actually on Hulu if you guys want to watch it, and Tubi and Amazon Prime for free. So that's something I've wanted to see, so I'll definitely check that out.
But if you want to watch Endless, you can get it on YouTube, Google Play Movies and TV, Vudu, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV. It's all rent it. But hey, it's
for $2.99.
It's $3, and it's a 2 hour. It's exactly how we're describing it. It's some weird shit. And it's not rated, so
that is strictly an indie film. And for those of you who, if you want to check out Spring, if you want a description of it, because that does tie into this movie. I believe they're part of the same universe. The description for that is an aimless young man takes an impromptu trip to Italy and becomes involved with an alluring genetics student who harbors a transformative secret.
Yeah.
So. That, apparently, they have some things in the extras on the Endless, which the directors say that there's some loops and references to Spring. in The Endless, and that movie came out in 2017, which I forgot because that is kind of like long ago, but also not long ago at the same time. So just to give you guys a quick synopsis of the story for this, from the movie itself, two brothers receive a cryptic video message inspiring them to revisit the UFO death cult they escaped a decade earlier. Hoping to find the closure that they couldn't find as young men, they're forced to reconsider the cult's beliefs when confronted with unexplainable phenomena surrounding the camp. As the members prepare for the coming of the mysterious event, the brothers race to unravel the seemingly impossible truth before their lives become permanently entangled with the cult. So
it's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, basically
it's not exactly horror.
It's not. No, it's just kind of weird. But I like that. It's like sci-fi high concept strangeness.
Yes.
And I enjoy that. I gotta, before we start talking about the plot, give full props to Benson and Moorehead, because they both are also the main characters. They play the brothers.
Yes.
And Benson also wrote the screenplay. And they both produced it as well. So this was pretty much just two guys making this whole movie. And maybe that's why it doesn't feel... I mean, it's confusing at points, but it feels tighter, and it feels less like, studio heads changing it. You know what I mean? It feels like two people were just allowed to make something, and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, what I like about them is that they work very closely together too, and they make their film. So it's kind of like Rian Johnson. When you hear a Rian Johnson movie, he really makes it his. So really, studios don't have a control over him. They just kind of...
They kind of remind me of Phil Lloyd and Chris Miller.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to make this movie. If anyone has a problem with it, we're gone. Find someone else. That's what they did with Solo, because the screenwriter for that threw a fit. On set. While they were like halfway done with the movie, and they were like, you know what?
Did they try to incorporate like a whole bunch of other characters in there too that were unnecessary? Because I heard that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
But...
yeah, I like these directors. And then they've come out with a couple of stuff. Like they got a horror romance one called After Midnight.
Okay.
Which looked really good. It's only for premium subscription on YouTube TV and Amazon Prime Video. Also on YouTube, Google Play, and Vudu for rent for $2.99. But that looked good. They kind of got the same cast for a lot of their movies.
That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all.
There's also a movie that I really wanted to see called She Dies Tomorrow, which I've heard pretty good things about, and that kind of has a similar feel and look to The Endless from what I've seen.
Okay. And I like the look of this movie.
Yeah, and I think they just produced that because it's directed by Amy Seismitz. Amy has a strange feeling that she will die tomorrow, and despite having no rational explanation, she remains utterly convinced. Somehow her conviction that she will die tomorrow spreads contagiously through a town. So that's not free to view anymore, but you guys can check that out too, because it looks really good. Check out the trailer and make up your mind. I'm sure we'll get around to it, because it's definitely an interesting movie. But what I've noticed is that when Aaron and Justin are part of a project, it's almost never bad. Yeah. Even Synchronic was I was a little skeptic on that movie, but I feel like it's one of those that was advertised kind of differently. The way I came across The Endless and Justin and Aaron was because back when Family Video was a thing, rest in peace to that store, COVID killed it. Very sad because you could get some really good movies there. Mm-hmm. What ended up happening, the way I was introduced to The Endless and a lot of other indie films was through Family Video. They had a lot of selections, and I'd just go in there and buy them because they'd only be like $1.50, and it was like at that point it was like, okay, buy 2 movies for $3. You're paying $3.21. It's really not a lot, and I was like, if I love them, great. If not,
I'll use. Sorry, am I boring you? Is my presence making you tired? You fucking clod. Where did that come from? I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. It's been a long day.
But no, there was like it wasn't that much to buy, so it's kind of like, you give it to somebody if you didn't like them,
yeah,
or whatnot.
Exactly.
So that's how I got The Endless, and it wasn't exactly enthralled with The Endless when I first watched it. Upon a second viewing,
Yeah.
it was a much smoother go because I kind of knew what to expect. And that's kind of a lot of the problems. Like, if you look at this movie, you can look at the movie poster, and it's got like a portal, like a swirling portal, and it looks really, really cool.
I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say.
Oh dear Lord!
Just interpret what you will from the fact that Noah said upon a second time it was a smoother go, and just allow your imagination to take you there. I'll get in trouble. You won't. This is why we shouldn't record at 4 a.m. I'm a mess. I hope they know that I really value our friendship, and me yelling at you is clearly a joke, and we don't get comments like, "Geez, what a fucking asshole."
Gotta face the mic a little bit more.
Oh, sorry. Could they still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You get what I mean, guys. I just joke around with them because it's kind of cool abusive relationship we have.
Just less toxic than Harley and the Jokers.
Thank God. If it was as toxic, I don't think I would be in it, or I'd be dead.
But
without, go ahead with continue with your lecture, Professor.
If you guys take a look at The Endless, you kind of see like a swirling vortex.
Yeah.
It's a very cool design, and it's very reminiscent of, I should say that, a movie called The Hole in the Ground.
Which we might cover, who knows?
Yeah. Which came out in 2019, so 2 years later, also has that same kind of poster design if you look it up. And then it's really neat looking.
Which is, yeah, it's very nice.
Except I got a more horror vibe. I felt like this strongly delivered.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Definitely that The Hole in the Ground delivered stronger than in the horror aspect. Now, keep in mind, these are all fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of the fans don't like it, but those are also a lot of people, I think, that went into it just going, oh, it's not some big-budget Hollywood thing.
All right.
And that's what you can't do with these. Like, The Endless stands at 67% in audience scores and 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. I believe that...
Yeah, for critics, 92.
I mean, for me, I personally give it like a 78.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that.
Just as...
There's some dialogue choices that are a little clunky, and I feel like at a point it doesn't quite stick the landing, but I feel like that's maybe what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
And in a sense of just seeing this movie for what it is as creative, I think the creativity is what earns it the fresh 92.
Exactly.
In the terms of creativity, it did something different and bizarre, but managed to stick the landing while bringing you on a journey and making you feel as if you were part of the cult.
Exactly. And the as someone who has 4 brothers, I can say that the relationship between these two characters who are supposed to be brothers, freaking realistic. You nailed it.
It was almost like a coming of age story, but for adults.
But for adults, yeah, it's coming of age story for full grown people
who never got that chance. So that's what also made this movie a very, very interesting watch, and what got me a lot of respect for it.
Right.
And
yeah. Shall we get into it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys don't want spoilers, check it out there. Maybe I don't know. Check it out on there. Maybe it's on demand or something, or playing on a channel if you can find it or something. But watch the movie if you'd like, if you care about spoilers, and then come back. Otherwise, we're gonna talk about it in 5, 4, 3, 2, bam.
And now we are ready. So if you're still here, prepare for spoilers.
Yes, prepare. That's what the countdown was.
So we kind of, what do we start off with? A weird.
He gets
weird
the tape. He gets the tape.
Yeah, we've started on, I believe it's Justin, right?
Yes. No. Here, hold on. Aaron. Justin's the one who has his life together. Aaron's the one who wants to go back. He gets the tape.
That's right.
He spends the money that was supposed to be spent on a new car battery on a camera set that they hook up to their TV so they can watch the tape from the cult.
Yeah, which is already like, dude, you need to let it go. Why are you wasting money on something that you so barely escaped?
It's a thing of like...
Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah, because like the therapist understands, and like Justin, whether he says it or not, he clearly has issues with it too, because it's like, we find out later on in the movie, the leader of this cult saved them from their mom's burning car and basically raised them. And if that's your whole life, yeah, you're going to miss it, of course, because it's all you know. You know, regardless of if you think it was a bad thing or not. You know.
Well, I also think, too, granted that it's a loyalty thing. It's
Right.
really feeling responsible that you have to uphold that accountability and somehow
Yeah.
find a way to pay it back.
It's also the fact that like these two guys are barely skimming by and able to freaking live, while like at the as we see later at the camp where the cult is, they kind of like help each other, and like everyone helps everybody, and it's, you know, it seems nice, you know what I mean? Like it seems very homely and not like as cultish as they say at first.
Yeah, which is something that should be said. The accuracy of cults in this movie
Yeah.
was great without giving it, you know, I'm just going to say it as a Charles Manson feel to it.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't feel like a death cult,
No, not at all.
but it did feel like a ritualistic cult. But what I love is that they really captured that, and every bit of feeling that you had towards this movie, like during the cult scenes, every bit you had of feelings towards the cult was intense. It made you feel the what if.
It made you feel an intense emotion, whether it was like anger or sadness. You felt something.
And you really felt that you were being immersed into the cult because you could see both sides. And I think that's something that not a lot of movies that focus on cults do very well, in all honesty. Usually when you get a movie that involves a cult, you basically get... How do you say it? What you basically get is a movie that will focus on one or the other.
Right.
It doesn't really focus on both, and it doesn't really give a purpose for either. And that's something that has always annoyed me, because when if I wanted to know more about a cult, and that's what the interesting thing to me when it comes to these types of cult movies is that they're very...
You don't know how to describe it.
I'm trying to.
They're very like
Documentary.
Yeah, well, they're either very documentary-ish, or they're very like only negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's the thing about most movies that involve cults. They have a very
one-sided
particular. Yeah, they're very one-sided and give it a narrative.
Yeah, and that's not what life is, you know? Life is all perspective, you know? From the perspective of the brothers, the cult is terrifying, but from the perspective of the cult, everyone else is terrifying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're just doing what they want to do because they can, you know? And it's not... they're not bothering anyone, they're not hurting anyone.
And that's the thing about Benson and Moorehead, is that they really did a good job capturing that of both sides. Because you have the cults that, in real life, are like the Manson family, who will brainwash. I mean, every cult has a way of brainwashing you. And if it's not brainwashing, it's manipulation, which we do get a lot of in this movie.
Yeah. There's a movie that won't come out yet that talks a lot about brainwashing and manipulation that you made me watch. Still might have some residual anger if you couldn't tell. Listen to that review. Anyway. Bad call on your part. Go on.
But... Well, I mean, this was a more tame cult movie. But
Yeah,
like I said,
there was they didn't try to brainwash anyone.
They didn't try to brainwash anybody, and they weren't focused on violence. It was focused on...
They were singing songs by a fire with a guitar.
They were very wholesome. It felt like a community, and it made it more relatable to me. Because you understand, you understand why the people in this cult are believing what they're believing in and why they're there. They're just a community of people who have their beliefs. So it's kind of like a religion, you know, basically. That's how they kind of depict this as more, is it's a religious-based cult.
Yeah.
Towards...
Not a UFO suicide cult.
Yeah, towards an alien being. And one of the interesting things that I loved a lot about this film as well was the more you kind of explore, so we'll kind of get a little bit in depth before we kind of go beat by beat a little bit.
Yeah. I think the perfect sentence to sum up this movie, for me at least, the more you learn, the less you know. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
which is
Which sounds weird, but watch the movie.
it really does give you the thing that some people are not meant to know things. It really gives you that sense of you just need to have faith in what you're seeing.
Exactly. Like, we, the audience, don't find out why certain... We're past the spoiler, right? Point, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're listening, you already know about this. If not, you just don't care. But, we, as the audience, we never learn the significance behind the areas that have time loops, you know, or we never learn why the pillars make you invisible to some people from a certain perspective, and we never see or know what that invisible creature is. But
which we only get to see as like a Lovecraftian type being in one of the lakes.
We see it in the lake, and it's gigantic, and then we kind of see it in the end as it's like destroying everything, kind of, and I feel like that's what it's supposed to be. It's a mystery, you know. You never You're supposed to know the entirety of it.
See, now it's
because if you see it, it's less scary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It did what it did, and it wasn't like a straight up horror film, so it didn't make you as uneasy, but it made you more curious.
Yeah,
it's why It Chapter 2 just did not work as well as it could, because you knew what Pennywise could do. You knew what he was.
Yeah, and also the stakes are not as high when he's going to kill adults than when he's going to kill children. You know?
Exactly. And that's what I would describe this movie as. Imagine, because the being has influenced this one small campy area throughout there.
And the being itself doesn't seem inherently aggressive or violent. Like,
no, it doesn't. It seems very to itself, and it really does seem like a Cthulhu.
Well, it is aggressive to Justin when they're doing the rope pull. But that's because it senses
Justin doesn't believe in it.
Exactly, that's why.
And that's kind of what I like. It's observing, speculating.
Yeah, it knows who and who doesn't, you know. It can tell.
And like I said, that's what I liked. It kind of gives you that dairy plot of what if you just had something that was purely based on observation and belief rather than feasting on its residents.
Right.
And I mean, in a way it does. It's feeding on their belief and relying on them to...
It's feeding... Yeah, relying them to believe in it, but it's also feeding off of... my interpretation of it, anyway, it feels like it's feeding off of the residents there via them being trapped in the time loop, you know? Because it's like their life energy. Like that poor sucker who's a 1900s guy stuck in a 4-second loop of a tent. Like, poor bastard. Like...
Yeah, which he keeps getting shot.
Is he getting shot? That's what's happening?
Well, I think it's that, or he keeps exploding.
It looks like he keeps exploding. Yeah. But it's just like, tick, 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 tick. And it like, he has the face of like, this is hell, you know? And it is.
And I feel like there's a very specific reason, as we don't learn the time loops. But the more you kind of think about it, the more you think it's almost supposed to be like its own hell. Like, specifically... Because we learn that one of the characters who has a wife in the cult, and I'm trying to remember his name because he's very important in that regard.
Well, the wife is only in the cult to find him.
Yeah.
I know which character it is, because...
But it makes
he's the guy who's trying to help his friend get sober.
But see, was it Anna?
Jennifer, I think... Anna was the girl who was really into Aaron.
That's
who makes her own clothes. Jennifer was the girl who was looking for her husband and smoking and thought the cult was super weird. Michael was the guy who was helping Chris, who was trying to get sober.
Okay, that's right. And so it makes you kind of suspicious though why Jennifer would join the cult for that.
She wasn't in the cult. The cult told her that they could help her find her husband.
That's right.
So that's why she's around.
So it almost makes me feel like they somehow lured her and tricked him into there too. Yeah. It's almost like they used them as sacrifices. Because I know they talked about a couple of...
Yeah, that's what I think. They're feeding the life force of this creature. You know,
by capturing some of the most traumatic moments.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, like, it's just fascinating, man. I feel like.
There's so many questions left unanswered, but in a way, see, it's one of those things where it's not a curiosity to kill the cat. You want to know more, but you're very satisfied with your answer.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, spoiler for Rick and Morty, one of the first few episodes is, I believe it's episode 4. Morty gets a dragon.
Yeah.
And
Great.
at the end of the episode, or like at the beginning of the episode, we learn Jerry he meets this talking cat that has nothing to do with Rick, because that's his obvious thoughts, is it has something to do with Rick.
Yeah.
Talking cat has nothing to do with Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's voiced by Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, of course, because why wouldn't it be?
And at the end of the episode, Rick goes to go find Jerry because he's having trouble with the cat. He won't tell Jerry why he's talking.
Yeah.
Which obviously, as humans, and that's the irony in it, because curiosity killed the cat.
Right.
And so when Rick and them, they stop in the middle of this desert, he traps them in like a energy sphere or box and scans his mind to see the truth. And what we get is a bunch of horrific screaming sounds and a baby, and Rick literally about to vomit.
Yeah.
With a horrified
and
face.
if
which
Rick
takes
is
a lot.
about to vomit, yeah.
Because he's done some pretty heinous shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an Event Horizon scene,
obviously,
is what I believe they were going for as a reference. And then Rick is nice enough to finally tell Jerry no, which was nice, because even he was like, you don't deserve to see that.
Yeah.
Into which Jerry looks for literally about 2 seconds before flying full force away, vomiting, and freaking out.
Yeah, of course.
So this I kind of got, and the reason I say I said that is because I feel like The Endless has that kind of vibe, where it's like, the cat said sometimes things should just be satisfying enough. They don't need answers.
Yeah, which is true about everything.
Yeah, they shouldn't always have answers. And I feel like The Endless does a great job of delivering that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, in a sense, instead of just having the basic, there's deadly consequences. Well, okay. If I'm devoted enough, it drives you to insanity. So it doesn't matter if I die doing it, because I just want to get the answer.
Exactly. So
when this came and they were talking more and more about how... When they were talking more and more about like how this stuff works, and then it wouldn't make sense to them, and it wouldn't make sense to the audience. Mm-hmm. It was really awesome because
it's honest.
It's honest, and actually, Tim, the leader of the cult, encouraged it.
Yeah, like he has his whole equation that he's been working on for, as is evident by them looping time apparently forever, but he knows, I feel like deep down in his mind, he's never going to figure out why any of this is happening. And he's okay with that.
And he said that. He wants to keep trying, because if he does, that could explain a lot. But he's satisfied with the fact that he may never know, because at least it gives him a purpose.
Right. And what is life without purpose,
And so this had a lot of deep meaning in it, too, which I think is what adds to its greatness. And... so that was the kind of cool perspective, too, that Tim was more of an encouraging, instead of being your average cult leader of like, oh, no, you can't peek behind that curtain. He was like, go explore for yourself, and you'll find what you're looking for.
I'm not going to tell you what's behind the curtain, but go ahead.
Go ahead, and you will find the answers.
If that's what you need, then that's what you need,
Yeah, you'll find your answers. And that, to me, was something that really made the movie. And I know I've said that, but it really does. It really... changes the rules of kind of an exploration and sci-fi wonder film and kind of a horror narrative, because you never have a character, especially of a cult or of a specific group of people that are viewed as bad. You never really have the one person who's rooting for you or rooting for our main characters saying, go explore.
Right.
They're always trying to hide the truth. So when, and the brothers, Justin and Aaron, they argue and bicker back and forth, because Justin obviously is like, we escaped, we're not maybe doing the best, but we need to be content because what happened there is the reason that we left, and we can't just go back.
This is our life now. We need to make the best of it.
And we need to move on. Aaron, on the other hand, obviously, as we said earlier, with the Stockholm syndrome, he's more concerned with how they're living now. He thinks it's shitty. He thinks it's terrible.
To his credit, it's not the best. Like, they clean houses. They barely make enough money to live. It's it all. Because Justin, out of nowhere, apparently, when they were on a double date, blurted, "We were part of a UFO suicide cult."
Out of nervousness.
Yeah.
And, that was another thing, too. Like, I understand. How are you supposed to do it? And that's something like, in Cult of Chucky, that was one of the first things they incorporated with Andy's life. How he could never get a date because he was always known as the kid who had the possessed good guy doll.
Yeah, because, that's how it is nowadays. You go on a date with someone, you Google their name beforehand. That's
very unfortunate that you have to.
Yeah, but that is what you do.
Yeah, and so you find out everything anyway. So it's kind of like, with Justin, it was like, how do you also say that without making it seem like it was a secret?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to live a normal life with being a part of that. Like, I can only imagine, I'm not going to name names if you guys want to go do it, but there's a couple of different Hollywood stars who have had that experience with their families.
Yeah.
If you guys want to do more research into that, feel free to do so. It's kind of interesting.
It's different.
Yeah, and for them, it's great that they've made it to their status and they've had such a positive influence on people and through their medias and movies. And I believe that gives them the drive they need for taking some dramatic roles that are very serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only imagine how hard it must have been for them to kind of make that transition from kind of that broken home into the industry, but also just as a person into the public eye.
Right.
How do you go from that?
Because it can't be
forever. I mean, if you think of people from the Manson cult, there's still people who never did anything, per se.
Yeah, because what do you do after that,
Yeah, they never wanted to really do anything. They were just interested because they heard somebody who could talk and it could pique their interest.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, as humans, if you're able to give a good speech, we will listen, no matter what is being said. Like, so many people have proved that throughout history, that if you sound like you know what you're talking about, people will believe you know what you're talking about.
And it'll give you enough motivation to do anything, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, you kind of look at somebody like that, or anybody who associated, like, take Jeffrey Dahmer, for example. Anybody who associates with kind of these big names that have done heinous things, or these groups of people, once you're known for being a part of that, you're always pegged. You're always the person that people are curious about when they know your name and what's behind it.
Yeah, like, what's going on? How's it going? Yeah.
Like, oh, are you going to be the one that murders me? And it's like,
No.
But people...
I had a shitty life. I'm sorry, but I want to move on.
Yeah, so that was kind of another thing. I'm glad they didn't focus on that. They did a very good job in the beginning of the movie, because before Justin and Aaron head out to the cult, what they're basically doing is that they've done like these interview tapes with their therapists and kind of explained what's happened to them. And we get a little bit of shots, I think, don't we, for a couple of different things. We get it like a news story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they kind of show pictures of them when they were young after they escaped the death cult.
Yeah.
And or the UFO cult, and gave like an explanation. So they were well known in the public eye for a little bit, and then obviously, like most things, faded into
obscurity.
Yeah, they got buried. So they did a very good job at kind of making that, and then going through therapy sessions.
Yeah. And
making what, kind of showing what their life has been like over time. Mm-hmm. Another great thing that they did was show the promotional tape. And I love when movies do this.
Yeah.
I love when they take a concept of something that's so, like, like a heinous thing. Something that's, like, supposed to be so heinous and evil. And they show how they're promoting themselves. Mm-hmm. The movie that we just watched, which is going to have a lot of... It needs to sink in with both of us, for sure.
Yeah.
But the first Panos Cosmatos film, if you guys know what Mandy is, he did this movie called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I think is a work of art, but it's also a very interpretive film.
I interpret it as frickin' weird.
Exactly. As far as that goes, the first thing they show is what the facility that the movie takes place is going to be like. It gives you an idea of like, oh, it's this pleasant place where we do things for people and we help them find their mental bliss.
Everything's sunshine, rainbows, and more sunshine.
Which obviously,
it's not.
Whenever you hear that, even in real life, when you hear something that's way too good and fabricated to be true, if
you hear something that's too good to be true, it is.
Yeah, you're like,
simplest answer.
Yeah.
It is.
So that is kind of what this was like. But I love when movies do that because it really gives you an idea of why these people are where they are.
Right.
Why they went there, why they're there. Because, a lot of the times, too, it's very easy to say in these kind of, horror thriller movies, why the hell would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the answer is there.
Right.
But for a lot of these movies, it needs to be said. It can't just be implied.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, it's always one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to have to spoon feed you like a baby. You're adults. Figure it out. But it's like, for narrative purposes, it just needs to be that thing. When you read a Stephen King book, what makes a Stephen King book is that it's annoying how much detail he puts in there. But he paints the picture.
You can imagine it perfectly. He describes,
everything.
Egg dripping down of someone's mouth when they eat it in a diner. And I'm like, I can see this perfectly, but I feel there's a part of me that feels like we're wasting time.
Exactly. I mean, it's nice because you really get the idea of what Stephen King's world is like.
There's no need to picture anything in your head. It's all in your head. Perfect.
And that's nice. To a point. And
to an extent.
To an extent. It's what works and it gets repetitive, but then you also have people who paint a picture and they give you detail. They give you a little bit of detail, not so much as Stephen King, but not so little that you're like, okay, that was bland. Like George R.R. Martin, I would say, with his Game of Thrones book, he gives you just enough detail to form your own picture while still having a reference. And some of the things that don't need to be said in those books are just said anyway, so that way your mind can be like, okay. It puts your mind at ease, so you're not focused as much on it. Mm-hmm. That is something I think is very missed in these films. And it's something not just in The Endless that Benson and Moorehead have did it, but in their other movies too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of said things in Synchronic that, are presented in a way that could be said, but are visually there instead of telling you.
It's open for interpretation, a lot of it.
Yeah, and I like that. They give you something to work with. They've said it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of glad, and I have a lot of respect for this movie too, because it really gives the narrative of why each and every character is there. Actually, they all have some sort of story, which is something that a lot of these movies again will, and whether that's Hollywood or whatever, but a lot of these movies they will just skim through the stories, and you can't do that.
No.
These people need to be fleshed out. Now, and I think a lot of directors and other people and story writers think that, the necessity to flesh out a character means you have to, roll them out a carpet and, write all over it and give them this super, super long, drawn out character progression for a whole story. And it's like,
you gotta spoon feed it for 3 hours.
Right.
And no, we're not idiots.
No. But we want to have, if you're going to have a side character, we do want to know when they're part of a major event in a cult or in the military and they're working for so-and-so. We want to know their background and history. You don't have to span that out over the film.
Yeah.
It's just...
do some pre-release books or some crap. I don't know.
Yeah, which the new Mortal Kombat did a great job at that, I think.
Yes.
They did fantastic with not showing every little flashback for their characters, but instead just having them describe it. And it was enough for you to be like, okay.
And that was enough for you, a person who is not really familiar with those games at all.
Yeah, which we'll definitely be doing an episode on that, because that's something interesting that I was pleasantly surprised with. For like in a first video game experience I hadn't really watched other than Monster Hunter before it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, say what you will about the original Mortal Kombat, the first one from the 90s. There's a lot of joy to be had in that because the repertoire between all the cast members is there. The fight choreography for a few of the fights seems so like just fluid and quick paced, and it's actually people throwing punches and kicks, you know? There's some lines in there that are cringy. I will never in my life be able to forget those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
which I feel like is a Johnny Cage.
Yes, of course. He also does the splits and punches a guy in the balls. But
Full.
it's awesome.
I mean, we'll definitely do an episode on that.
We have to.
But
You have to watch Annihilation. If you had a meltdown when we were watching House, you need to watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Because you will watch that as a because you watch indie films all the time, and you can appreciate them to an aspect because you yourself are currently an independent filmmaker, so you understand the wherewithal of it. You will watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation and say multiple times, "There's no excuse for any of this."
Especially
It's
when it's
that.
Hollywood.
It is that bad.
Dear Lord.
That being said, I love watching it because it's hilarious.
Kind of like the Son of a Mask, but at least tolerable.
Yeah.
But no, I really do wish that more movies would sit and draw out their characters. We don't need some tragic flashback. They got in a car crash. My daughter died. Just imply it. Just say it. Just fucking say it. I don't need to see a 5-minute clip of wasting movies. And that's a lot of what people say. Well, it's a waste of time you don't need in there. Well, then just say it in a story.
It's not a waste of time if it means your audience won't be confused.
Or feel disconnected.
Yeah.
That is, you know, and even to throw one more example out there, without going too far on a tangent, Red Dead Redemption 2 did that perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Every character, Arthur, even as you play as him, you get a sense later on. But every single character in that camp, from their stories, the way they sit down, the amount of dialogue they give each and every character, it's fucking great. It makes you really feel like you know the characters and that you're part of the camp.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I don't know if it's fair to make that comparison just because, like, you know, that's a video game, and as compared to a movie, runtime is vastly different.
I mean, I feel like a story is a story when it comes to fleshing out your characters.
Sure.
And Red Dead has, I mean, because it's Rockstar, they do their games obviously cinematically.
Yeah.
But I feel like they give you a pretty good idea in a video game within the first few minutes of meeting a character each time. So in the beginning, you already kind of know your established character. You know your main character and the people that they're associating with right away.
Sure. I mean, I feel like the reason maybe, you know, in the back of my head I'm just thinking about this, maybe the reason a lot of video game movies fail is because, you know, you play a video game and it's you feel like you care about the character by the end of the story, but that's because you've been with this character for 16 hours, you know, whereas in a movie it's like 2.5 tops.
It's a TV series thing.
Yeah. That's why do you think
prone.
The Witcher has gotten a season 2? Like, they're able to flesh out Geralt and really make you understand the world. It's not amazing, but it's still pretty freaking great. Like, I'm excited for season 2 to maybe, like, really tighten it up a bit more, but still.
Yeah, and so that definitely gets points in the Endless for the development of the story.
Yeah,
and its characters.
I cared about these people. I wanted them. You saw when I was watching it. I was cheering. I was like, "Come on!" I wanted them to be safe.
Yeah, and it made you feel bad, like especially the people in the time loops. It wasn't just a sense of humanity; it was the sense of you people have a tragic story, and that's why you're here, because you're all in a sense lost.
Yeah, they've all had dealings with the outside world. It hasn't gone the way that they wanted to, whether said or not. Some people you can it's kind of implicit, but it's like, yeah, of course you would want to escape. Why wouldn't you? And if you found this group of people, they're not a big group of people, but they seem to care about you and hope you're happy, then yeah, why wouldn't you take that?
And
you know?
everybody kind of gets the idea with the cult, but I think you need to think more than just a cult, which is what this movie also advertises. It really thinks, and I'm not saying go out and join a cult for anybody who plans to twist my words. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying...
No, Jared Leto, what are you doing? But no.
It's, what I am saying is it advertises the idea that every group of people starts off as just people. They're misfits. They're people who have had such a hard time in the world. And
we've all been lost. We've all felt lost. And there are some people in this movie and clearly in real life who have felt so lost that a cult doesn't sound like a terrible idea. You know?
You have food. I mean, that's one of the
yeah. Everyone's provided for. Everyone does their fair share of work, and it seems like a fun little thing.
And Aaron, when they're heading down there, that is one of the major things before they even leave that Aaron points out. He goes, "Man, it doesn't sound too damn bad. Every night we have a warm meal in our bellies. We're well fed. We're cared for. We have a place to sleep, a roof over our heads. We have a community of people that we can count on." And I like the struggle between the two brothers because you see constantly that Justin wants to say yes so bad. Mm-hmm. Because he wants to believe.
Because life is not what he... You get the sense it's not what he thought it would be.
No.
Because, it's revealed later on in the movie that they were kind of almost going to be kicked out of the cult anyway because they were advertising that it was a UFO suicide cult and trying to sell stuff to these people to make money. And I'm assuming when they escaped and were on the news, he was under the impression that he was going to be treated like a celebrity. But that doesn't happen when all you do is escape a cult. At least not for very long. You have to actually do something later on,
And that was something that, he piggybacked off of, but I don't think he actually had an experience of the real world either.
Exactly.
So it was kind of like...
It's just what he thought.
Yeah, it was just like raising a kid in a room all their lives and then throwing them in the outside world after them just kind of...
Yeah. We don't know their age when they got saved from a burning car, but...
You're homeschooled, here's your community, here's your family, now we're going to throw you in the open world. Yeah. Well, what the hell is happening?
Exactly. They were also, something you have to recognize from, the news footage we see. They were kids, essentially, when they escaped. They were in their early 20s, but they were kids, They
still had the mentality. They didn't know what the world was, and, that made you really understand, because we've all been there.
Mm-hmm. We've all been there.
And you don't get to just associate that with adults. There is no barrier of having that.
One of my favorite quotes ever: "There are no adults. There are only older kids."
Exactly. And you guys can take that however you want. But the fact still remains, doesn't matter how old you are, how young, how old, you're still just as entitled to being lost as a person.
Oh, yeah.
And not being able to feel accepted or comforted where you are as a person.
If you're feeling this way as well and you're listening to this and you're in high school, do not freaking worry about it, man. You will figure it out, trust me. Because here's the thing about high school. No one knows who they are. We can both vouch for that.
And middle school as well. If you're like me, it's vice versa. People in middle school is the worst for me. And one day you guys will learn why.
Yeah.
But...
Not today, but one day maybe.
Yeah. High school was better for me. But...
Yeah.
I'm still figuring out who I am.
Yeah.
And I think with everybody, there's always a lot of regrets on what they've done and the person that they are right now.
Sure.
But that doesn't always mean that they have to be that same person. And so it made Justin Aaron very relatable, because especially Justin, because it's like, how do you screw over? It's like leaving your family.
Right.
You know your family and whatever. Some of us have harder families to deal with than others, but it's like screaming at your family and cussing them out and disappearing.
Exactly, because Justin wants to leave, but Aaron wants to go. Or no,
Aaron wants to go
stay,
back, and
Justin wants to leave. And, they're arguing about it, and when Justin leaves after they've been there, and there's all these weird experiences, there's a rope that gets pulled that nobody sees, there's an apple that flies in the air and waits 10 hours before it falls.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff going on. But Justin, he he wanders off and he finds this guy, and he like opens the door, and the guy like it looks like he's hung himself for hours, and then the guy walks
in behind him.
Yeah, and it's like, and he explains, "Oh, we're in time loops. Like my loop is short as hell, man. We're in time loops." And then he's like, "I'll draw you a map to get back to the camp, and I'll give you the thing so you can get out of here, but you have to go to this place where there's a longer loop and get a gun." And it's all like mapping out logistically what's going on, what isn't going on, and like it would be a lot to undertake. You know what I mean?
It's not something
because you don't want to get trapped in the loops.
Right, and that's something that they also explain as Justin and Aaron arrive at the camp, and they kind of get reintroduced, which we can skip over that because we really covered that.
Yeah.
And they start learning about like these different abnormal supernatural events.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they do learn is that there's a second moon that starts to appear. These moons start appearing. So
they say it's an optical illusion.
Yeah. So by the time there are 3 full moons, they will be forever trapped in a time loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is one of the things that they're trying to avoid.
So at least they got a clock.
Yeah. So I mean, like, after a couple of nights, it turns to the second moon starts to become half there.
Yeah.
And after a few more nights,
second moon's full,
which is horrifying, by the way.
Yeah.
The horror element in this is the minor stuff.
Exactly.
It's the stuff that fucks with your head that you don't. It's not like ooh, I'm Pennywise, and I'm going to jump out at you.
It's not the stuff that you see on screen in the moment. It's the stuff that you think about a few hours later. And you're like, wait, what?
Because one day you look up in the sky and you're like, the moon is a blood moon and it's halftime.
We were driving and you saw an orange moon, and I think your exact response was, "What the fuck, the moon?"
Because
I was like,
I haven't seen a blood moon in a while.
Yeah, and you didn't know one was coming up.
No, so it's kind of like you go outside.
It wasn't a full blood moon, because full blood moon's like beet red. It was like orange, which is like.
See, I've never seen a half one, so it's kind of. It was like. That's just creepy to look at.
You're like, did I smoke some weed and not remember? Like, yeah.
I don't like blood moons because they just make me unsettled.
And I reassured you. I was like, no, we're fine. If there are any satanic cults out, they've already got the people who they're sacrificing tonight, so we are okay. It's a bit of a dark turn, but...
I still don't like the fact of a blood beet red moon that looks like it just, got its eyes gouged or drunk.
You say that. You say that, but that's because it doesn't happen that often.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's why it's unnerving. If the moon was red all the time...
And then turned white.
Yeah. And once every 12 years it was gray, you'd be like, holy shit, this is the end times.
Well, I know. It's like, if it was just red all the time and turned white, it'd be like, that's not right.
It's the same with how, when I was a kid, I was super weirded out while watching Dragon Ball Z, because they go to an alien planet, and the sky is green, the water's green, and the grass is blue. And you're like, huh?
Yeah, it's the sensory, was not deprivation, but
sensory confusion?
Overload? Deprivation? Yeah, sensory overload, because nothing is
so many
as
different
it seems.
things. Yeah.
So many changes at once.
So many surprises.
Which is another thing, too. You feel just as confused as Justin when he's trying to explore this place, because the laws of physics do not apply whatsoever.
No. We see that with the apple, where it gets thrown in the air, and then while they're having a conversation, the guy lifts out his hand and he catches the apple. The rope that he's like, oh, it's just a guy on a ladder. But no, the guy's right there, so it's not him.
And it's just going up into a dark sky.
Yeah, and then there's like the frickin' rocks that are like randomly planted everywhere, and if you stand on a certain side of them, you're hiding, and then there's the invisible creature that attacked him, and the thing in the water.
The creature likes to drop tapes,
which is weird,
and cameras of you in your current moment. So it's a live recording of you from unknown.
Does that mean the creature's a vlogger?
I don't know.
Maybe he's an amateur director. Maybe he just wants to make his film.
But that's like the part that creeps me out the most when after the movie.
Yeah.
Because you're just thinking of, what if... That's like a video game.
Yeah. Like, what if someone gave you a tape, and the tape was you walking out your door and picking up the box that the tape is in. You know what
And
I
then
mean?
you sit there and then you see yourself in live time.
You say, yeah, you Truman Show style see yourself on the television, and you're like,
But you remember season 3 when Sadie Sink's character, Mac's brother, gets stepbrother?
season 3 of what? You didn't
Stranger
say...
Things.
Oh, yeah.
And Max's stepbrother gets pulled into the upside down.
Yeah.
I think of that music whenever I think about that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's very horrifying.
Did you ever see the movie Disturbia?
No.
It's a great film with Shia LaBeouf, but there's a thing where his friend, he's under house arrest, and he thinks his neighbor is a murderer. So he has his friend take his camera,
Oh, Summer of '84.
yeah, which is like live linked to his TV. I don't know how they pulled that off, but he's filming it with it, and he can see some stuff. It's like the guy was hunting deer in his freezer or whatever. But then the camera cuts out, and then like the next, I think later on the night, the camera cuts back, and you just see his friend like blood on his head, face still, with the camera in a closet, and he's like, "Oh God, oh no!" And then he looks around in the closet on the image, and he sees a crafts because earlier on in the movie he was very bored, so he super glued a bunch of Twinkies together into a pyramid. He sees that, and then he sees his shirts hanging, and he goes, "Wait, what?" And he opens his closet, and his friend is in his closet.
Oh, Disturbia, that was like
Yes,
the inspiration movie for it.
Freaking love that movie. So good.
Is
so
it,
good. It's like a modern day...
Frailty. Is the
Frailty.
Frailty is the other one with McConaughey.
Disturbia is kind of like a modern day Rear Window, if I had to describe it.
Yeah, Summer of '84 I like, and I believe somebody said something about it, because their plots are basically like identical.
Pretty close. It's pretty freaking close.
Just reading the description.
Except happier ending in Disturbia. Much happier ending. But then like...
Which, you guys, if you want to hear the review of that movie...
Yeah, let us know. We'd love to talk about it. Oh, Summer of '84. It's on
Summer of '84.
Mm-hmm. It's on our YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you find it.
Go back and listen to it. Not just reviews it.
One of his favorite films.
That was one of my favorite films. It is so fun to talk about. That was a very fun episode, so...
For you. I'm kidding. I had a great time. I'm kidding. I had such a great time.
That was such a slow burner.
It is, but that's, some movies are meant to be like that, Some movies
Oh, no. I liked it as a slow burner. I'm not much of a slow burner. And I think that's what really threw me off of The Endless when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was such a slow burn film, and that's not what I was expecting.
I think we see a behind the shot of Justin jogging at least 8 times in this movie. But that's, it's not a bad thing. They barely escape the whatever eldritch horror bullshit that is that's about to kill them. And they're like saying, he's like, I can't remember what he says about family. It's like, you're an asshole. You always screw this stuff up, but I'll still love you because you're my brother, and that's what families do, Yeah,
they really pulled the strings of wanting you to hate Aaron.
Yeah, because it's a lot, like, he's the reason they came back. He's the reason Justin is barely making it out of time loops looking for him. And then after he does find him, Aaron still wants to stay. And he wants to, like, get taken by whatever this is until he sees it and is like, yeah, we gotta fucking go.
Exactly.
Well, and it's also a fact that when Aaron was like, I'm staying, Justin was like, alright, I'm staying too. What? You hate it here. I know, but I'm not leaving you. So
you're my brother.
It reminded me a lot of The Boys when Huey wouldn't leave the whale carcass. And MM just sat in there and was like, I'm not leaving you. They'll be here any second. Yeah, I know. Your family will never see you again. Yeah, probably not. Asshole, let's go. Okay.
See, I like that because it's like...
I can totally see you doing that with me or vice versa. Don't you think?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a... Well, if you're that concerned about it, then you better move your ass.
Yeah, exactly. If you're really concerned about my well-being, then I guess we should both go. Otherwise, we're both staying here, aren't we? All right.
Pretty much. And that's what I love most. It's two siblings fighting because they can't
It's
come
very
to
realistic.
terms.
The conversations they have the same. It's not the same topic, but it's the same wording and formula as conversations I've had with my siblings. I cannot tell you how many times we've been like sleeping in the living room or something, and I just hear, "Shh, shh, go to sleep." Yeah, but should you go to sleep? Shut up, go to sleep. Go to sleep, go to sleep.
And I felt that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a family thing.
And the way this movie ends, and I know we kind of didn't do beat for beat because this movie is a very...
It's hard to follow beat by beat.
Yeah,
what are we going to do? Talk about how one guy's trying to do magic and how Anna sews clothes and one guy calls her a pedophile? No, I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on that.
Didn't one sheep get yeeted across the field too?
Yeah, a sheep got chucked.
And so did a cougar?
I think so, yeah.
A mountain cougar, so...
And his bullet, he tried to shoot a bottle and the bullet just kind of hit the ground. And he was like, what the heck was in front of my bullet? Like, it's super weird.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, very good movie.
Yeah. It's a strange movie, but a great movie nonetheless.
And...
I enjoyed it. I'd love to meet these guys. They seem like really cool guys.
Yeah, I'm. This is like, you know, like I said, with my second viewing, I was excited.
What were you like with your first viewing? Just kind of like, all right, well, that was a thing.
Pretty much. I couldn't get an opinion on it, but in fairness, I didn't really try to judge it too because I was like, it's so weird to me, and it's not your average movie. So I was like, and I bought it with the impression of, it'll be a hit or miss for me. So, given the fact that I gave it a second chance, which I was hoping to do again, I always told myself I would give it a second chance. I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did too.
So, but that's all we're probably going to do for this episode, because, like I said, it's one of those movies you really do need to experience for yourself. It's a great movie.
And I know some people think that's just a cheap way of us saying that we don't want to review it, but you're a liar.
No, I think we fleshed out, but I think we really got in depth to, I think we really went in depth as to
the basic ideas and concepts, and it's all there.
Yeah. So, I mean...
Yeah. Watch it if interesting high concept things interest you, and, some coarse language, and at one moment a guy, like, really insisting that in order to be safe that this dude has to suck his dick. That was really uncomfortable. We didn't talk about that, but that was very uncomfortable.
Even as a joke, it was like, You're a weird dude who's been hanging himself and killing himself in many different ways. That's probably not what you say.
Swear a lot, and you're very just on edge all the time. Like, no, but okay.
And I know one thing we did skip over was, like, we mentioned the one guy who was with his friend who was a drug addict trying to get him clean.
Yeah, and he's got himself handcuffed to him. Sure, I'm tired. Gone.
He ended up...
They burned the house.
Yeah, he burned the house down with a minute.
And in his own words, why? Because fuck you.
That's what he said to the beast, and it was great.
Yeah. You really got that sense of like, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, so I appreciated this for what it was. It was just great. It was fleshed out very well, and it made a lot of sense in terms of what you would expect this kind of life to be like. So
sucky.
Yeah. To say the least.
But thank you all for listening. Subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, all that fun stuff.
Which we will work. We're endlessly working to get those out to you guys. So
yeah, we apologize for the issues we have had with YouTube. It's a combination of long videos, confusing setup, and not exactly up-to-date equipment. But it will all be remedied in due time.
Yeah. So, without further ado, that has been Nathaniel Shoemaker.
Yeah, that over there is Noah Sweeta.
And this has been Film Nerds Hour.
Bye.